Max Focus Backup Academy. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matthew DeWitt. My email address is matthew.dewitt@logicnow.com. And if you have any questions about today's presentation, Thomas Morrow is here with us, and he can answer your questions in the chat window. So basically what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be focusing on Max Backup, and we're going to be focusing on the configuration and installation of a backup manager as well as the cloud management console. So this is part one of a two-part presentation, and part two occurs tomorrow on Thursdays, every Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in part two, we're going to focus specifically on recovery and the recovery console. So today's session is not going to focus on recovery. We are going to talk about it briefly, but if you want to deep dive into recovery, you definitely want to attend tomorrow's session as well, and we do obviously encourage you to do that. All right, a little bit of housekeeping here. For those of you who have not signed up for a trial, we do offer a fully functional 30-day trial. No feature restrictions, no support, no restrictions with your account managers, etc. So it's just like you were a customer. So feel free to jump in there and join the Max Backup family. We'd definitely like to have you. Alrighty, and so the reason everyone here is here today, Max Backup. So when you look at the 15 files in the top left-hand corner, you're asking yourself, hey, what do you guys do with my files? How are you transferring that data? Where's the data going? What's happening? And so what we do is, once we run your first backup job, everything after that is going to be system-wide deduplicated, compressed, and encrypted before it ever leaves your machine. So we're going to take that data, we're going to put it into these cabinets, these 15 cabinet files, and those are going to be 8 megs apiece. And that really helps with load reduction. So we're going to take that deduplicated, compressed, encrypted data, and we're going to send it over your network over port 443 to our storage nodes. So what this means is that your data is both encrypted at rest and in transit, right? Which is a requirement for HIPAA and just a good business practice. All right, so let's look at some of the technology we use that makes Max Backup unique. I like to think of our technology like this. We don't need to read all the books in the library if just a chapter in a book has changed. All right, so we don't need to send your files, your whole files, over and over and over again. So what we're going to do is once you've made a selection set, you selected the data that you want to be backed up, we're going to assign a 256-bit Havel hash code to that data, and we're going to upload that core set of data. All right, the next time you run a backup job, we're going to assign a new 256-bit Havel hash code, and we're going to compare that code with the previous code. So you'll see the code for the C drive hasn't changed at all. So we know immediately we can skip everything on the C drive, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to follow the chain down so that we're only looking at Havel hash codes that have changed, right? So we're going to follow that down, and that allows us to skip files and folders that we know for a fact haven't changed. All right, and so what we're going to do with the data that has changed is we're going to back that up at the Delta block level. And so using this technology, on average, we send less than 0.5% per day compared to the total size of your selection. So this is really important. When your customers come to you and they say, hey, I'm on a DSL connection, I don't know that cloud backup is right for me. That's not really true. Not only do we have a seeding process that can help them offload that first upload, that first big backup, but on average, we're sending about 0.5% per day, right? So that's definitely something that can be managed even with a DSL connection. So looking at that a little bit deeper, let's take this 2 meg file, right? So this is 2048 KB, and we're going to divide this by 256, right? And so that gives us 8. So we take this 2 meg file and we break it up into 8 blocks, and we're looking at this file as if it was 8 different files. All right, so on day 1, we're going to back the whole file up. All right, we're going to send that to our journal. And then day 2 is going to come around, and we're going to assign a new 256-bit Havel hash code, right? And we're going to compare that with the hash code from day 1. And so on day 2, when we compare that code, we've seen that only data in 2 of the 8 blocks has changed. And so that's actually all we have to send. We only have to send 2 blocks instead of 8. Day 3 rolls around, we've only got 1 block of changed data, but we also have appended some data. So again, we're still only sending 2 blocks of data. Day 4 rolls around and we're only sending 1 block of data. One of the really cool things about our technology, though, is we also do this in reverse. So we're one of the only companies that I'm aware of that also perform true Delta restores. So take day 4, for example. If you wanted to take day 4 and take the file and make it look exactly like it looked on day 3, you don't have to send all of day 3's file. You only have to send 1 block. 1 block and the file looks exactly like it looked yesterday. All right? So using this technology in conjunction with our local speed vault, we're going to get the fastest restore times possible. All right, so let's talk about retention, cleaning, and archiving. So Max Backup uses what's called a rolling retention period, and this retention period defaults at 28 days, right? So this is fully adjustable at no additional cost to you, but the default retention period is 28 days. And so what's going to happen is after 28 days, day 29 is going to roll around. We're going to create the retention for day 29, but we're going to drop off day 1, right? So day 1 is going to get cleaned off the back end, and so now we still have 28 days worth of retention. All right, so if you need something more than that, you have two options basically. You can extend the retention, maybe you need 30 days or even 45 days. But if you want something really long-term, that's when you want to start looking at archiving. So archiving basically sets an archive flag on those retention journals that you're already creating, right? So this isn't a separate backup job. You're already creating these retention journals. So all we're doing is we're telling the backup manager, hey, the next time you run, I want you to be an archive or set the archive flag on this retention journal, and I don't ever want you to expire. So archives are retention journals that never expire. Even after the 28 days, they don't get cleaned. In addition to that, even if you remove data from your selected data set, the data that's inside an archive remains inside of an archive, even though you're not backing up that data anymore, right? So you never have to worry about data being removed from an archive. It's never going to happen. All right, so in this example, we're archiving days 9 and 13 out of our 28-day retention period. So to give you a visual perspective, let's say that the 28 days rolls past, and now we're into next month. Well, what's going to happen is all of the non-archived journals are going to get cleaned, and so we're going to have 2 archived journals plus our 28-day retention period. So now we've got basically 30 journals. 2 of them are never going to expire. You can go, 6 years down the road, you'll still be able to access those archived journals. The non-archived journals will get cleaned after 28 days. All right, now we also talked about the initial uploading of data. So what happens if you have a customer that has more data than bandwidth, right? So basically what's going to happen is you as the managed service provider are going to set up a seeding process. They're going to run a backup job, and that data is going to go directly to a locally attached hard drive, all right? And so at that point in time, you as the managed service provider have 2 options. You can either take that hard drive back to your data center, all right, where you can upload that using your presumably faster internet connection. Or if that doesn't work for you, we'll send you a free shipping label. You can ship us that hard drive, we'll upload the data for you, and then we'll ship it back to you at no additional cost for you. All right, and the data on that drive is fully compressed and encrypted, right? So there's no risk of data loss there. And all of these tools are provided for you. All right, so let's talk about encryption. Max Backup has 3 levels of available encryption: AES 128, AES 256, and Blowfish 448. From a HIPAA standpoint, HIPAA's only requirement is that your data is encrypted with at least AES 128. Right, so even with the lowest level of encryption here, you're HIPAA compliant right out of the box, right? Or at least you're HIPAA ready. So the process that handles the encryption, the backup, etc., that process is called backupfp.exe, or backup functional process. So if you see this running in the task manager, that's what it is, backupfp.exe. Now I do want to talk about Max Backup from an encryption standpoint here. Max Backup is a zero-knowledge system. Right? So what does that mean? What does it mean when something is a zero-knowledge system? What it means is that we do not have access to your encryption key. All right, we don't know what your encryption key is. We can't decrypt your data on our servers. And so what that means is if you or your customer loses that encryption key, there's nothing that we can do to help you get it back. All right, so you're not going to be able to recover that data. So it's very important that you securely document your encryption key because we cannot recover that for you. All righty. So let's talk about why we're a hybrid cloud solution and what that really means. So Max Backup is a hybrid cloud solution, and we believe in a 3-2-1 backup process, or a backup best practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 copies of your data. 1 copy is going to be the production copy. 1 copy is going to be the local speed vault if you choose to enable it, and I highly suggest that you do. And 1 copy is going to be in the cloud. So that's 3 copies of your data. We're going to have 2 media types. So one's going to be local, one's going to be remote, and then obviously we're going to have that data offsite as well in the cloud. So the local speed vault is the local copy of your cloud data, right? So this is going to be deduplicated, compressed, and encrypted. It's going to contain all 28 days or whatever your adjustable retention period is. It's also going to contain all of your archives. So this is going to be an exact mirror copy of your cloud data. All right. So this is going to give you the fastest restore times possible. All right. In addition to that, what happens if your internet connection is lost? When you're using the local speed vault, you're still going to be able to run your backup jobs and even perform file and folder level restores directly from that local speed vault with no internet connection whatsoever. All right. And so as soon as the internet does come back up, that data is automatically going to synchronize back up to the cloud. And this process also works in reverse. So if you're currently running backups and you don't have a local speed vault, if you configure one, it's automatically going to download the retention and archive data that we're storing in the cloud so that your local speed vault is always an exact replica. And again, this is going to ensure that you get the fastest restore times possible. All right, so let's talk a little bit here about virtual disaster recovery and bare metal recovery. So Max Backup basically has 7 options for virtual disaster recovery, and I like to break them, the first 6, up into groups of 2. So the first group of 2 is going to be imaging, right? Max Backup has the ability to generate flat image files of your infrastructure. We can create either VMDKs or VHDs as you see fit, and we can create those either on demand or in a continuous recovery fashion. The next set of 2 is going to be direct integration with hypervisors. If you don't want to use a flat image file and you want to integrate directly with your hypervisor, whether it be any paid version of ESX or Hyper-V, that's perfectly fine. The free version of ESX Server disables API access after 30 days, so it stops working after 30 days. But we do support any paid version. So you can send your data directly to Hyper-V or VMware. So you can virtualize that data. You can do physical to virtual. You can do virtual to virtual, right? So you can migrate your data. You can have a warm standby if you want, a disaster recovery solution. We scale incredibly well. In addition to that, we also have the next group of 2, which is going to be our cloud recovery targets. So in addition to images and integration with your hypervisor, we also support both Microsoft Azure and Amazon EC2. So if you're interested in sending your data to the cloud, we can do that as well. And last but not least, the 7th option is going to be bare metal recovery. So with bare metal recovery, we give you the option to either create a bootable USB drive, which is great for physical-to-physical bare metal recovery. We also give you the ability to create an ISO, which obviously you can use to burn a CD, but you can also use to do network PXE boots. We're going to give you access to your network settings, allow you to map drives, etc. for additional storage. We're also going to give you an HTML-based GUI, and the benefit of this is that you can white label the bare metal recovery tool. So if you as a managed service provider want to leave a bare metal recovery tool at your customer's location, you can do that, and it's going to be white labeled. So you're thinking to yourself, well, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to leave a bare metal recovery tool at my customer's location if I just have to be there to use it anyway? Well, that's the beauty of this product, is that you don't have to be there. You just need someone on site that can boot off of the utility. At that point, you can actually access that BMR session remotely from within the Cloud Management Console. So when you go to launch that backup manager, you'll see an entry for the original device, but you'll also see an entry for the bare metal recovery session. All right. In addition to that, we also support dissimilar hardware, and we have single pass application recovery for VSS-enabled applications. So we don't have to do one dump of flat files and folders, reboot, come back around, do Active Directory, do Exchange, do Hyper-V. We can do all of that in one pass. All right. So in addition to that, we support multiple platforms and data sources. So when you look at this icon list here, you see the major database players: Oracle, SQL, MySQL. You see the 3 major operating systems: Mac, Windows, Linux. You've got the 2 major hypervisors. You've got Exchange, SharePoint, VNS-enabled applications, and we support all of this under one platform. So you don't need multiple software solutions to back all of this stuff up. In addition to that, we also have worldwide data centers, but that doesn't mean that your data is going to travel the world, right? So if you're in a country with a data center, your data is going to stay in the country of origin. For example, if you're in Canada, your data is going to stay in Canada. If you're in the United States, your data is going to stay in the United States. We have 3 European data centers. We also have a data center in Australia. And I'm going to show you a little bit later how you can check to see where your data is and confirm both to yourself and to your customer that your data is where you told your customers that it really is. All right. Some of the other technology that we use in the background is called Backup Accelerator. So Backup Accelerator is going to monitor large file types that are VSS enabled. So for example, if you're running on a Hyper-V server, or you have a VMware server, or you've got large PST or OSTs or EDB files for Exchange or DB files for SQL. One of the last things that you want to do is sit around and scan those really large files during a backup job looking for changes, right? So the Backup Accelerator is going to constantly scan these files for changes, and it's going to track these changes so that when the backup job does run, it already knows where all the changes are, and it can just start sending data. And so this is going to significantly reduce the time of your backup jobs. All right, so by default, this works with VSS-enabled applications, and it does, by default, only work on files that are 5 gigabytes or larger. Anything smaller than that, and we can really handle that data pretty quickly. All right, so I am going to touch briefly here on the Recovery Console, and this is really going to be a focus for tomorrow's presentation, the Recovery Academy. But basically, the Recovery Console is your tool to take the data and put it somewhere else. If you're going to do a restore that's relatively local to the machine that's backing up the data, you can just use that machine's backup manager to perform the restore. There's nothing special or unique about that. But what happens if you want to build an on-site disaster recovery appliance where you want to take that data and you want to migrate it to another server, or a server in a completely different building in a completely different state? How do you move your data? And that's where the Recovery Console comes in. So you can use the Recovery Console both locally and remotely. And it also has full support for our cloud virtual disaster recovery targets. So again, we are going to focus more on how this works tomorrow, but the Recovery Console effectively is your tool to move your data or to migrate your data. We also have a new release cycle. So on the second Tuesday of each month, we release the new version of our software, and we do this every month. And we make that available for a manual download. So if you're looking for, if you want to be on the bleeding edge, you're looking for a new feature that we released, you can manually update your agents on the second Tuesday of every month. If you're one of those people that says it's not broken, don't fix it, on the fourth Tuesday of each month, which was yesterday, we will automatically update your agents, and that's going to be completely transparent to you and your customer. And I can show you where to go to check those settings, make sure that your customers are getting updated, etc. I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, so with that said, I do want to just remind everybody that we do have a free 30-day trial. It's all inclusive. There's no feature restrictions. There's no support restrictions. You have full access to everything that we offer. All right, and when you do sign up for a trial, you're going to get a welcome email. And this welcome email is going to have your partner name, the username and password that was assigned to you. In addition to that, it's also going to point you to our website, downloads.maxfocus.com, which is where you can go to get our tools. So let's go ahead and pull that website up now. All right, so now we're at downloads.maxfocus.com, right? And we've got a couple options here, and I'm going to run you through each one of these options before I dig any deeper. So first and foremost, we have the Cloud Management Console, or the CMC. So the CMC comes in two forms, an application-based and a web-based interface. For today's presentation, we're not going to focus on the web-based, but I did put a link to this in the chat window, which is backup.management. All right, so the application-based is very similar. It doesn't store the data locally. There's no local database file that you have to manage. You don't have to let this run 24/7. It doesn't have to be on a dedicated server. This can be installed anywhere. This can be installed on your computer. You can have it on multiple computers. All this does is it makes an SSL call out to our database and gives you a visual representation of your cloud data, right? So this is not a local database or a proxy that you need to manage. And this is going to be the focus, the first kind of focus of our presentation. In addition to that, we also have a generic backup manager. So there's two types of backup managers. There's generic backup managers, or non-white labeled backup managers, and then there's backup managers that have been white labeled with your branding, and I'll show you that process a little bit later. For today's presentation, we're going to focus on the generic backup manager. In addition to that, we have a release notes section. So if we click on release notes, it's going to take you to our blog, which is status.maxfocus.com. And in this case, it's going to take you to the specific MaxFocus backup page. And here we see that we have the 16.5 May release. And if you want to know what's in here, you can scroll through this and read this, and it'll give you kind of a change log and let you know what's available. If you come into additional tools, there's a couple things that we need to talk about in here. So first and foremost, we have the Recovery Console. Again, we're going to focus on this tomorrow, but there's no reason for you not to download this and play with this. This is going to give you the ability to put your data somewhere else. In addition to that, we also have our bare metal recovery tools. The EXE is going to build a bootable USB thumb drive, which is great for physical-to-physical bare metal recovery, or anything that can boot off a USB drive. And then we obviously have the ISO for legacy devices or for network PXE booting. In addition to that, we have Virtual Drive, which is a technology that we haven't really talked about yet. So Virtual Drive gives you the ability to map your cloud storage to a local drive letter. So this is going to use the B drive, B as in boy, and basically this is going to map your cloud storage so you can browse and extract from your cloud storage directly. But in addition to that, it's also going to integrate with the backup manager, and it's going to let you do things like granular exchange restore, as well as granular hypervisor access. So if you're running VMware or Hyper-V, you're doing backups at the host level, and you want to access a file that was backed up that's running on the guest, you can do that via the Virtual Drive plugin. And this is going to give you the ability to cherry pick the data you want to download without having to download the entire VHD or VMDK file, which is going to be way, way bigger than the actual data that you're trying to access. All right. And then last but not least, we have the server tool, which is going to give you the ability to seed data from your data center. So if you're looking to do your own seeding, that's what you want right there, the server tool. All right, so when we download the Cloud Management Console, there's two versions. It's going to auto-detect. We've got a Windows and a Mac OS version. If you're on Linux or another operating system, again, you can use backup.management. So once that runs, it's going to open up a window that looks like this, and it's going to ask you to put in your credentials, right? So this is where you're going to use that welcome email, and you're going to put your partner in here, your login, and your password. Now there's a couple of things that you want to do before you start adding customers to your Cloud Management Console. So if you come under Actions, Preferences, this is going to give you the ability to see where we're pulling the data from. So if you'll see here that we're pulling from Cloud Backup.Management, and we're using port 443, which is obviously encrypted with SSL. So nothing that we do here is going to be plain text. This is all encrypted traffic, and really this is just a view into our database. All right. The next thing that you may want to do is create some products. So what are products? Well, products effectively are policies for customers, right? But they're not the kind of policies that say, hey, what time does my backup job run? Those are schedules. These are the kind of policies that say, what do my customers have access to? What features do they have access to? And so you have a couple options. You can give your customers all-inclusive access if you want to create just one level of service where they have access to everything, and that's how we sell it to you guys. There's no nickel and diming with this product, but that doesn't mean that you can't charge your customers on a per feature basis. So if you want to give them the all-in experience, you can just use the inherited all-in policy. However, what I've done here is I've created 3 tiers of service, and each tier has a slightly better retention policy and also has access to more features. So the Bronze SLA doesn't have access to archiving, it doesn't have Exchange Granular Restore, it doesn't have Bare Metal Restore, and if I come down here, it just has a standard 28-day retention period. So this is also where you can adjust your retention period. Right, with my Silver SLA, I've got a 45-day retention period, and it looks like I did give this customer access to a couple of additional features. When I come into my Gold SLA, now they have everything enabled, right? And they also have a 60-day retention period. So again, this is just one example of how you can create tiers of service. You can also adjust these on a per customer basis, create a policy for each customer based on their specific retention needs. The other thing that you probably want to do is add some users. You're probably not working alone in the office, so if you've got other technicians working with you, you may want to give them their own login. So here, who you have selected on the left-hand side is very important. This is my partner account right here, DeWitt's Demos, and so I only want to add technicians that work for me here, right? So I've added Matthew, I've given him super user access, and he's good to go. And this is my default login. Under Bagel Shop, I've added a customer login, and this login is actually for a customer. This is the owner of the Bagel Shop, and they're going to log in using this login. And actually, I probably have them log into the web interface. It's just going to be a little bit easier than managing an application for them. But I've given them reporter access, so they can just look. They can't touch, which is really important. So now that we've done that, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and add an end customer. So in this case, I'm going to add Jeff's Auto Shop. And I'm going to hit next. This is going to ask me for some custom information. I don't mark it to this. I don't care if you fill this out or not. This is really for your reference only. So in this case, I'm just going to hit next, and I'm going to hit next. And so what this is going to do is it's going to create the account, but it's also going to see that the account that it just created is empty. It doesn't have any devices. So what this is going to do is ask me to add a device. So in this case, I'm going to add desktop PC. I'm going to select Windows here because this is going to be a Windows machine, and I'm going to go ahead and give it the Gold SLA product here. And then I'm going to hit Next. And so you'll see that it's added the entry here, and it's also given me my device name and my password. Now I'm going to copy that password because I'm going to need it here in a minute. But you'll also see that there is a URL here with a one-time PIN. So if I were to click on that, type that PIN in, it would download a backup manager that had two things that were unique. First, it would have the device name and password already built into it. But in addition to that, it would also have white labeling or branding built into it. Now, I just closed that window, but if you ever need to get back there, you can simply right-click on the entry, select Modify Device, and this will give me the same information that I was just looking at. It'll also give me some additional information like Gold SLA, let me set my products, and the ability to generate one of those one-time links again. All right, so in this case, I'm going to head back over to the website, and I'm going to download a generic backup manager, right? And so when I do that, it's going to run, it's going to download and run, and it's going to open a new tab in my web browser. And that tab is going to point to localhost :5000, and it's going to ask me some questions for the initial configuration. So first and foremost, it's going to ask me for my language settings. I'm going to hit next. And that's going to ask me for that device name and password that was created when I first added the device. So we'll call this desktop PC, and I'm going to paste that password in. Now that password is absolutely not your encryption key, okay? That is just a unique identifier for the device. So I'm going to hit next, and this may take about 30 seconds. It's going to call home and say, and basically it's going to say, hey, is this a real device? What's going on? And so when this is finished, it's going to give me the ability to go ahead and actually add my encryption key, right? So this is identifying that the device is not already assigned an encryption key. It doesn't already have a key, so it's going to say, hey, before you can continue, you need to add a key. All right. So anytime you see one of these question mark icons, you can hover your mouse over it. It's going to give you some really great information. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select AES-128, and what I'm not going to do, and this is what you're not going to do either, is you're not going to paste that password in from the last screen, right? Because that's going to be really, really bad security. I don't want to have access to your encryption key. I don't want to know what it is. So we're going to create a unique encryption key here, and we're not going to tell anybody what it is, but we are going to secure that key so that we have it for future use. All right, we're going to hit next, and now it's going to ask me for three things that I don't really want to do right now, but you may want to. It's going to ask me to schedule my backup. I don't want to do that because I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit more detail. It's going to ask me for some reporting, which I'm also going to show you later, and it's going to ask me for some default file selections, which I don't want to make right now. So I'm just going to skip those, and I'm going to hit done. And when I do that, it's going to drop me into the actual backup manager that's running on this machine, and it's going to give me the ability to go ahead and make file selections. You'll notice that it dumps me into the backup tab because it specifically wants me to make those selections now. So I'm going to hit add here. So I've got a couple data sources. I have detected data sources. So detected data sources are things that we've detected on your system, files and folders, system state. If this machine was running SQL or Exchange or Hyper-V, those would also be detected here. All right, and then we have available sources, which are always here. We have network shares, VMware, and Oracle, and these require additional information. And most of these require basically an IP address in order to connect to them. So in this case, we have a couple options. I'm going to show hidden files because I want to see everything here, and I want to make some granular selections. Let's say I just want to back up these files and folders, right? Those are the files and folders I want to back up. I hit OK, and if I expand this, now I can see what I've selected. But what this gives me the ability to do is prioritize which files get uploaded first. Right? So if I want to upload the files that have the red up arrow, those files are going to get uploaded first. So if I'm trying to prioritize my data traffic and make sure that my most critical files get uploaded first, that's going to give me the ability to do that. In this case, I actually want to perform virtual disaster recovery. So now we're going to talk about what the requirements are for virtual disaster recovery. And virtual disaster recovery requirements are very simple. System drive and system state. All right, so system drive and system state are the two requirements for you to perform any of our 7 virtual disaster recovery options, which includes imaging, hypervisor access, and bare metal recovery, as well as our cloud recovery targets. Now, when I say system drive, it's easier for me to tell you the system drive than it is for me to tell you exactly what you have to back up. In truth, you can come in here and you can deselect some of these folders that aren't really required to boot up your operating system, right? So I don't need these files. You may choose to back them up, that's up to you, but from a strict requirement standpoint, Windows doesn't need those to boot. I don't need that, I don't need that. Got a lot of files and folders in here that I don't actually need, but I want to be careful, make sure I've got everything. So I need pretty much everything else. So this is really what I need in order to perform bare metal recovery. But it's easier for me to just tell you system state and let you pare down as you see fit. All right, system drive. And so we also have system state here, right? So these are the two requirements, system drive and system state, for performing bare metal recovery and any of our other virtual disaster recovery options. All right, now once those selections are made, I need to run a backup job. And once that backup job is done, then I can actually go ahead and perform restores and virtual disaster recovery. Now, when we go to the overview tab, you're going to see that this is completely blank, and that's because we haven't run any backup jobs. Now, I've got another backup manager open here, and I'm going to show you this one in a minute, but you'll notice I've got multiple backup managers. How do I know which one I'm working with, right? Well, if you click Max Backup on any of these backup managers, it's going to tell you the name of the device that you're working with. So this is really easy if you've got multiple backup windows open. You need to know what you're working with. Here you've got the actual device name as it appears in the CMC, and then you have the machine name, which is the physical name of the PC. We also have the version, the product, and we also have the ability to run a connection test. So this is going to give us the ability to kind of figure out how much data we're getting to the backup services. So if you're curious, hey, how long is my backup job going to take? The truth is I can't answer that question for you, but you can help yourself answer that question. You can do that by running this connection test. And this is going to upload and download a couple of 8 meg files and give you an idea of what kind of speeds you should expect. So you can do your own calculations, you know, speed versus data. All right, now I'm going to head over to a backup manager that's actually been running some backups, and I'm going to run you through the actual backup manager. So again, this is an example of some of the white labeling that we have available to us. As you can see, this one says Max Backup. The color scheme is different, and here's the white labeling in this one. Backup sources is going to tell us what data sources we have backed up successfully and what their last successful status was. And if we click on this, this is going to give us a session overview of the last backup job that ran. So in this case, we're doing files and folders, system state, both VMware and Hyper-V. We have, for files and folders, we have a selected size of 36 gigs, but in this case, we only actually had to transfer 27 megs, right? In this case, 12 gigs, 3.5 megs, right? 62 gigs, 40 megs. So this is that 0.5% in action. This is that deduplication, compression, encryption system-wide that allows us to really transfer significantly less data on a daily basis. If you come down here, you can hover your mouse over any of these colors and it'll let you know what's going on. The 21st is a great example here. People always ask me, what happens if I schedule 2 backup jobs at the same time? Well, if you look at the backup job at 3:34, it started the Hyper-V backup job, and then a second Hyper-V backup job ran at 3:42, right? Well, the second job failed. It didn't really fail, it just didn't start. And that's because the data source backup was already running for Hyper-V. So if you schedule multiple backup jobs, it's not going to break anything, it's not going to blow up in your face, it's just not going to start those additional jobs until they're actually available to perform the backup. All right? So moving over to the backup tab, we can look at our selections here. We'll notice that this machine has some more data sources available. Not only does it have files and folders in system state, and let's take a look at those and see if virtual disaster recovery is available. In this case, virtual disaster recovery is definitely available for this machine because we know we're backing up the system drive and system state, but we're also doing VMware and Hyper-V backups here as well. So again, we can do SQL, we can do Exchange, SharePoint, we've got all kinds of plugins. If we head over to the Preferences tab, this is where we can configure our actual preferences for the backup manager. So first and foremost, we have the General tab. So the General tab is where we can set up our dashboard, our daily dashboard emails. So we can use multiple email addresses here, and basically if you put an email address in here, you're going to get an email that looks like this. All right, so this is going to be color-coded, and it's going to let you know what you're backing up. So in this case, we were backing up files and folders in system state, and they both backed up successfully. If this is green, you can generally just ignore it. If it's not green, you want to dig in a little bit deeper and see what the colors actually mean. All right, we can do the same thing for restores. If we come to schedule, you can see that we can have multiple types of schedules here. So we have a daily backup, right? And this is going to run every day of the week, and it's going to back up all of our data sources. But then we have another backup job that's only focused on doing an additional backup for Hyper-V. And there may be some conflict here between the daily backup and the Hyper-V. We'll have to take a look at that, but there's no problems doing that, right? So here we have another backup job, and its only function is backup system state and files and folders, which is going to give us host-level virtual disaster recovery capabilities, which we're already doing in daily backup, but we obviously wanted an additional backup for that. And then we have a fourth backup job here that's only backing up VMware. So what you can see here is you can pick and choose which data sources each individual backup job is responsible for. And you can have one backup job that does them all, or you can have multiple backup jobs that can do them all. Or, as you see here, you can have multiple jobs that do specific things. So a lot of flexibility here for you. We also support pre and post backup scripts. Proxy, kind of self-explanatory. If you need to use a HTTP or a SOCKS proxy to get out to the internet, you can do that here. We also have a performance tab, which is going to give you the ability to enable bandwidth throttling. So we can, set our time frame, set our upload and download speeds in KB or megabytes. We can also say, hey, my business is closed on Monday. I want to utilize full bandwidth. So we're not going to limit this on Mondays, but every other day of the week we want this turned on. In addition to that, we can deny certain data sources the ability to run during throttling periods. So for example, if I had a backup job that was doing files and folders and system state, and I only wanted files and folders to be able to run during my throttling period, I would simply put system state here, and the backup job would be successful, but the system state piece would be denied, and that's okay, right? So that's going to give us a lot of flexibility. All right. Local Speed Vault, again, this is probably the single best thing that you can do both for yourself and for your customers. Local Speed Vault is going to give you that 5-minute RTO that you're looking for. So this is going to be an exact deduplicated, compressed, encrypted mirror copy of your cloud data. It's also going to contain all your archives. So this can be a locally attached drive or a network attached storage device using a UNC file path, and we can also specify username and password if they need to log into that device. All right, so archiving is going to give us the ability to set the retention journal as an archive so that it never expires. And the way archiving works is this is not a separate job. What you're going to do is you're going to run the archive job about 10 minutes before the backup job that you want to run. So for example, if let's say your backup job was run at 11 p.m., you'd set the archive job to run for about 10:50 p.m., so about 10 minutes before the backup job you want to archive. And what this does is this tells the backup manager, hey, the next time you run, the backup job that you run is going to be archived, right? And so we can also pick and choose what parts of that backup job gets archived. So maybe we're backing everything up, but maybe we only want our archive to be files and folders. We can do that, or we can have our archive job be all-inclusive of the data sources that are part of the backup job. We can select months of the year or all months. We can also select days of the month. We can do last day for months like February when we don't, we don't always know what the last day is going to be. Or we can always say, I want to do the archive on the second Sunday of the second week, right? We can do that as well. So a lot of different options here. Backup filters, these are fantastic. These are going to give you the ability to exclude both directories and file types, files or file types. So this supports both single character and multiple character wildcards. So if we don't want to back up someone's MP3 collection or their MP4 videos, or there's specific directories we want to exclude, we can do that here. The Advanced tab is going to let us move our temp file storage off the system drive if we need to do that. And it's also going to give us the ability to run the backup manager as an alternative user. So if you have a system that's really locked down and you need to be a specific user to access certain files and folders, you can do that here. Seeding, very self-explanatory. Seeding is going to give you the ability to seed your data. So basically, you're just going to specify either the drive letter or the UNC file path for the seed location, hit enable seeding, and your backup jobs will then seed instead of going to the cloud. Now, standby backup image is, or standby image backup is kind of the first entry into virtual disaster recovery. Now, remember, Thursday is really our focus on virtual disaster recovery, but I'm going to cover this feature with you today. And so what this does is this appends an additional task to your backup job. And so what this does is this tells your backup job, hey, do your backup, but at the end of your backup, I also want you to generate a locally attached VHD file of this infrastructure, right? So this can be locally attached, or it can actually be on a network share. And so this image is going to go relative to the machine that's backing it up. And this VHD is not going to be sent to the cloud. We don't need to send this to the cloud because we already have the data that comprises it in the cloud. But this is going to create that local standby image, and it's always going to be up to date. So the first time you run this is going to create a VHD. The second time you run this, or the second time you run a backup job, instead of creating a new VHD, what this is going to do is this is going to have the old VHD, and it's going to create a differencing disk in addition to that VHD. And at the end of the backup job, it's going to merge the differencing disk into the current VHD from the last backup job, bringing it up to date. So this is great until it's not. Well, when is this not great? Well, this is always an up-to-date copy of your infrastructure. Well, what happens if 3 days ago, Microsoft released a new patch and they said it was the best thing since sliced bread? So you installed it, 3 days go by, now your standby image also has a copy of that patch, and well, you found out the patch wasn't really the best thing since sliced bread, right? So now it's hosed your system, your production system, you can't roll back, and unfortunately your standby image also has that patch on it. So what are you going to do? Well, you can come over here to the Restore tab, and this is going to give you the ability to generate that same kind of standby image, but now you're going to be able to choose from any of your retention history. So if you select Virtual Disaster Recovery, you can either create a VMDK or a VHD. So this is actually going to give you a little bit more flexibility in what type of file and what type of recovery you want. And so now you can come in here and say, okay, I installed the patch on the 20th, so I'm going to generate a VHD of this server from the 19th. So now I've got that. I can make my selections. I can come in here and say, okay, that's my selection. And now I can go ahead and stick this VHD somewhere else. So this is really going to give me the ability to do granular restore, and I can do this from my archives as well. I can do this from any of my core data, and it's going to give me a lot more flexibility. So standby image is great, but it's very narrow, it's very specific. Virtual Disaster Recovery is going to give me all 7 of the recovery options. I can send this to Hyper-V, I can send this to ESX, I can do Microsoft Azure, Amazon EC2, VHD, or a VMDK. The Recovery tab is also going to give me the ability to do file and folder restores, VMware extractions, etc. So if I want to come in here and I just want to restore Bob's file, right, from the 24th, expand this, go down into the user directory, you know, find out who we've got here. Okay, we've got the administrator. Maybe I just want to restore one file. Okay. I'm going to restore ntuser.dat. There you go. It's that easy. I can either restore it to an alternative location, or I can restore it to the original location, overwriting the file that's probably there and corrupted. So again, it's very, very simple, and you can do this from any of your retention data, but you can also do this from your archive data as well, which is really important. And that's kind of the whole benefit of having archive data here, is that you can select from any of these data sources. All right, so that is pretty much it for the actual backup manager. Now, there's a couple more things that I want to show you within the Cloud Management Console. So first and foremost, everything that I just showed you, all of the things that I just showed you, all of the configuration, etc., can be done remotely and across multiple devices at a time. So you don't have to deep dive into every backup manager and configure every backup manager to do what we just did. It's just easier for me to show it to you that way. So if I come in here, select my devices, right-click and select Send Remote Command, now I have the ability to go ahead and make all of those configurations remotely. So let's say I want to do a schedule. I can either clear the entire schedules from all of these devices, or I can say, okay, I'm going to add a new schedule, file system, system state, name, backup 1, time, 1 a.m., days, all, right? So now I've created a new backup schedule, a new backup job, and it's on all 4 of these devices. It's going to back up this file system and system state, which are the 2 requirements for virtual disaster recovery. It's going to be called backup 1. It's going to run at 1 in the morning, and it's going to run every day of the week. And it's really that simple to set a schedule, right? Or I want to change my selections. I can do that too. I can include data. I can exclude data. Maybe I want to change my settings here. Maybe I want to, you know, mess with my encryption key, which I wouldn't suggest you do, or change my temp directory, or you know, I want to change the number of threads that I'm using for my backup job. I want to use more bandwidth, or I want to make some SQL modifications. I can do all of this stuff remotely, so you don't have to dive directly into the backup manager in order to do those things. In addition to that, if you double click on any of the devices, you're going to get the same session overview that we got with the overview tab of the backup manager. So here we see we do a system state backup, and we're backing up 11 gigs here. Maybe a better example here is the 15 gigs that we did here, and then we actually had to back up 186 megs, right? So again, of the 15 gigs we have selected, we only had to send 186 megs. System state 2 megs, right? System state doesn't change that often. 1,000 folders, again, 168 megs, very consistent, and this is that 0.5% in action. In addition to that, if you're a system administrator, you're doing other work for the customer, if you right-click and come under statistics, there's also a lot of information in here that you could want that's both related to backup and external from that. So if you come under miscellaneous, there's going to be tons of really great telemetry data in here. If you need the IP address of the machine or the MAC address or the computer manufacturer or the operating system type, you can find all of that information here. You can, even find the time zone offset. But in addition to that, I told you that I would tell you where to go to find out where your data was being stored, right? So if you click on Show Storage Nodes, this is going to tell me where my data is. And you'll see that all of these data centers start with US, right? These are all in the US. So all of my data is in the United States, and my data is split between Silicon Valley and Atlanta. All right, so all of my data is in the U.S. If you're in Canada, your data is going to be in Canada. If you're in Europe, you've got 3 European data centers to choose from, and we also have the Australian data center. So again, your data is going to stay in the country of origin. All right, if we click this guy up here, this is our partner information view, and this is going to give us the ability to both look at the max version, which is going to say, hey, do my agents automatically update on the fourth Tuesday of the month? By default, this is going to be set to always latest version. There's really no reason that you should not leave this set as always latest version unless there's a specific reason that you want to stay on a specific version. So you can come in here and say, I want all of my agents to stay on 16.5. Maybe you want to give agents a month or two to get fleshed out before they update, You can do that as well. But by default, it will be set to always latest version. And then you also have this custom branding checkbox here. So if you put a check in the custom branding checkbox and you click configure branding, you're going to be presented with a branding interface. And so the branding interface is going to give you the ability to configure the header, the color scheme, the icon size, the fave icons, the loading icons, etc. So if you want to brand this or white label this, you're going to be able to do that here. All right, so that is pretty much it for today's presentation. At this point in time, I'm going to give you guys a test. You're going to have 15 minutes to complete the test. If you get 80% or higher, you've passed the test. And when you're done with the test, you have 2 options. You can either leave, or if you want to stick around and do review the questions and the answers to the test, then you can wait the 15 minutes, and at the end I'll answer all the questions from the test for you. But again, you don't have to wait for that. Feel free to leave as you see fit. So with that said, I will go ahead and give you guys your test.